From the digiMAX studios in Metamora, Illinois, it's time for the Danny Grieves Show, brought to you by the Germantown Grill. Here's Metamora Redbird head basketball coach Danny Grieves and host Scott Kerker.
Well, Coach, it's been, 8 months since we got together the last time, coming off a pretty magical season. Finished second in the state, pretty much a magical run. But with success comes a lot of pressure to succeed. This is going to be a great season, but there's a lot of added pressure now to you.
Well, it also comes with a lot of sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I told our kids we had to do was to get stronger. Told them that from the night we got beat. And lo and behold, they've done that. So, the high expectations come, high. The way I look at it is this, the only thing I expect out of our kids all season long is to try to have as much fun as they can possibly have. Because when they're playing and just having fun, the expectations, the energy they bring, but especially when the pressure they're under goes away. And, if that's all they have to do is have fun, and if you watch them, they play a lot better when they're having fun. So that's how I've kind of looked at it this year.
We don't want to harp on last year's team because that was last year's team.
Right.
But, you lost 5 seniors that, were incredible.
Brought a lot to the table, day to day.
Every day. And, you made the comment last year a couple of times that the thing that made your team last year so successful was that your scout team ran the other team's plays or ran their offense sometimes better than they did.
We just came out of a practice, same thing's happening. So the challenges are there every day for our main guys. So if they don't bring it every play, they get beat.
Yeah, and that's invaluable to your team. And the player, I don't want to single anybody out, but last year, kind of the heart and soul of your team last year was Zach Schroeder.
Right.
He's moved on. And now you've got not a whole group of new players because you got a lot of returning players from last year. You got 4 starters back. And the thing that made last year's team so successful, I thought, was Zach Schroeder and his leadership.
Right.
And that's something that's kind of yet to be determined on who's going to take that role.
Right now, it's kind of leadership by committee. But even any committee has got to have somebody that leads it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got one so far, Mr. Mason, to step forward. As of right now, he's been the only named captain so far, and has done a pretty good job. We need more. I got a couple other guys in mind, and I think that will happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
And it's kind of a little bit of a surprise when you stop and think that Tyler Mason is only a junior.
Right.
But that's a good thing.
It doesn't have to be a senior. It doesn't have to be a starter. It could be anybody.
You've had you've had captains that were not starters in the past.
Yes, I have.
And so, that won't be anything new. And when you start looking at your players this year, and we'll take a look at some of these players that you've had when we filmed the scrimmage from this past week on Tuesday night.
Right.
Some of those guys that, that stand out, you still have, Ethan Kaiser, you have Tyson Swanson, Drew Tucker, and Tyler Mason back as your starters. And, we saw they kind of picked up right where they left off last year. And as you can see in the background, those players, your scrimmage, probably the most well-attended emphasis night for basketball we've had in a long time, maybe ever.
Our side was pretty packed.
Yeah, it was.
It was good to see.
It was good to see. A lot of people talking about this basketball season.
Well, then you got guys like, Zobrist and Hop.
Yep.
That have come light years also from last year. But, the physicality, I think, of this year's team is going to be quite different from last year's team. For instance, Tucker's gained 30 pounds. We've got probably the top 7 guys have all gained at least 12 pounds. And it wasn't like Coach Grieves pounds right here in the belly.
I feel your pain.
They've gotten stronger. And I was watching film from our last year, and I looked, man, who's those little bitty kids? And, you'll see that. But I hope that, carries over to physical and better, stronger play.
The thing about this group of players is that and people that didn't see him, maybe only saw him play once or twice, was their basketball IQ.
Yeah.
It seemed like they didn't always succeed at it, but they always tried to do the right thing. And sometimes, nearly every time you try to do the right thing, you're most always going to come out on top.
Well, as the season progressed last year, that did happen. And we got to be very unselfish in what we did, as far as, not just on the offensive side of the ball, but on defense, making up for somebody else's mistake, talking and communicating, and making things a little bit easier, which slows the games down a little bit for us. And I think as the season went on, everybody else's game, it was so fast they couldn't react, and they just weren't as efficient. And I think our guys did a much better job of that.
The other thing that, back in the day when Washington was kind of the king of the hill, the thing that I always thought they did that always hurt teams was that they had about 4 guys that could bring the ball up, that could handle the ball, that could dribble it. They had I can't remember what his first name, his last name was Ryan, a big 6'5" guard. Well, he was a post player, but he'd bring the ball up a lot. And I just thought, that is such an advantage.
That was about 10 years ago.
Yeah. And, you've got 7 guys that can handle the ball pretty well. I don't know.
Our first 7 guys can all handle.
Yeah.
They can take the ball and go downhill with it, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
The great thing is I think they can all shoot the 3 with it too.
Right.
And so it's going to be a little bit easier. You might not have the greatest matchup on your point guard or your 2 guard, so have your 3, 4, 5 man bring it up. And we have that luxury this year.
One of the things about last year is they kept saying Metamore's tallest guy is 6'6", and everybody's, shorter than that. But the length you have creates a lot of problems. They may be 6'6" or 6'2" or 6'3", but the wingspan on some of these kids it's huge.
And Luke Hopp is not quite 6'8", but he gives us a little bit more length inside when we have to go big. But yeah, you're right. We'll have a 6'3", 6'4" guy, but they play bigger than that.
Yeah, and Kaiser's been asked to guard a lot of bigger guys, playing out of position when he has to guard those guys. So he has to play down low, and he's really a wing player.
Swanson, same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But when Swanson started, it's nice to have 3 3-year starters, in Tucker, E, and Swanson. But when Swanson first started as a sophomore, he had to guard the big people because we had a couple other guards, and he didn't get to play the wing. And so, he's kind of picked up a little knack for playing and guarding guys inside that are much bigger than him.
And he's probably your most crafty player. I always thought that, he's kind of an old school player.
Right.
The way he plays defense and the way he plays offense. And he's kind of got that knack of knowing where to go and get open. He always seems to be open.
He does a nice job of taking what the defense gives him. A fake here, an eyebrow fake, a pass fake, whatever it might be. And as soon as you commit on something, he takes advantage of that. And he's an excellent finisher.
Excellent finisher around the basket, in the paint. And he can shoot the 3. How many threes did he hit last year? Big. It seems like every one of them was huge.
Right. Especially at the TOC to get us jump-started for the year.
He was outstanding last year. And then if he gets it on a breakaway, he can dunk it.
We have about our top 7 guys can all dunk, which you don't find that too often in high school.
No, not at all.
But it is kind of nice to have a little bit of athleticism. Usually, we don't have as many as some of the inner city schools, and right now I'll take our team against anybody.
You've also got Mason, who I thought down the stretch he spent most of the second half of the season. I think he broke his foot in the Pekin game at our place.
He spent quite a bit of time in a boot.
Yeah.
When he got out of the boot, it seemed like he was recharged, man. It was like he was shot out of a cannon when he take off.
Yeah, it was amazing, the contributions he made last year as a sophomore.
Right.
He'd take it right at people, kind of a no fear kind of guy. I guess that's playing a lot of driveway basketball with his older brother.
Since June, when we started our summer ball, he's been our best player.
Wow. It's just amazing. And, then you got, Ethan, who is signed with South Alabama.
Right.
Which is nice to get that done and over with.
I was glad to see that for him.
Yes, that was outstanding. I look for big things his senior year. And
he's done a tremendous job preparing himself for the year physically. He's got in the weight room, finally got serious about it, and he's gained almost 20 pounds himself.
That's got to help.
Yeah, it will.
Last year we did a lot of things with finesse. This year, I don't think that finesse goes away, but now you can add the physicality to it.
We can pound it in a little bit.
Yeah, and that'll be awfully nice. And you haven't even started talking about Drew Tucker, who I thought last year was he was that one guy on your team that you always need, regardless of the sport. You need that one guy that's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And
one of the best competitors I've ever coached.
Yeah.
He hates to lose anything he's doing, whether it be a sprint, whether it be just some drill work, whether it be free throw competition, whatever it is. You got to love a guy like that.
And, you don't expect things from him. The tomahawk dunk over at Richwoods. Mm-hmm. The steal in the semifinal game against Simeon where he stole the ball at half court and went down and could have dunked it,
right.
Just laid it in.
Right.
But and then if you need him to score 20, he'll get you 25.
Yeah.
If you need him to just take care of the ball and facilitate and pass, he'll get 10 or 12 assists a game and play great defense.
He's a really good rebounder. Yeah. I mean, you ought to see him just go to the offensive glass sometimes. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, he's been, to me, kind of the I don't want to say unsung hero, but he's been kind of the guy that just kind of sits back and, at the end of the year, you look and he's averaging 10, 12 points a game, and he's just been.
He
fantastic.
runs our team. He's the point guard. He brings it up. Ball is in his hands a whole lot, and he takes really good care of it.
The other, then you got your other, whoever starts between Hop or Zobrist. One's a junior, one's a sophomore. But Luke Hop, there's a guy that what did he come in as a freshman, about 6'2"?
Probably not any bigger than that.
Yeah, and kind of had a little bit of the guard mentality. Mm-hmm. So he handled the ball, dribbled. Now he's shot up to, you say, just under 6'8".
Right.
That's a shame.
And just under 200 pounds.
Yeah. And
so when we got to go big, we need to start him. When it doesn't matter if we go big, if they're kind of actually pretty small, like on Tuesday's game against Yorkville Christian, he probably won't start. We'll probably go with Zobrist because they got more guard action. And so now I'm going to start 5 guards. Now, do I count Hop as a guard most of the time? Yes. But with his ability to be a little more physical inside and help us defensively on the inside against a team like we're going to play on Wednesday, mm-hmm. With a 6'9" center going to Georgia, we'll probably go smaller that first night out.
And then, you got Hop. And the other guy that really impressed me over the summer, the couple games I saw, was Nick Walker.
Yes.
And he's
very
more
athletic.
Yeah.
Flies around like
big motor.
Yes.
And there's a guy that looks like if you needed him to come in and be physical underneath, he could easily do that for you.
What I like about him is he can guard almost all 5 positions. He's strong enough and physical enough and got great legs, to hold his own down there to get somebody who wants to push on him down on the block. But his motor runs.
One of the other guys, Kedrick Shaffrin,
yes,
a 6'4" kid, probably just now getting his basketball legs maybe underneath him a little bit.
He's had a good week and a half of practice.
Good. It's there's another guy that's a big body that if you needed to, you could bring him in. And then the other guy that really, I don't want to say surprised me, but I guess I just didn't realize how good of a mid-range jump shot he had was your grandson, Ashton. In the scrimmage the other night, he looked very good.
Well, he scored 11 or 22 points. He had 3 threes and a deuce going to the basket. He's come a long ways.
Yeah, I thought, man, he really looked good. And
he's been our best shooter for 2 weeks. Out of anybody.
Yeah, you don't have enough shooters.
Right.
You can never have enough of those. No. And there's probably a little bit of grandpa in you on that one.
and he's finally passed me up. He's now 6'1". That kind of hurt.
It kind of hurt just a little bit.
Yeah, it did.
But he's got a knack for getting open. He's a little bit like Swanson. A little bit knows where to go.
Yeah, he does. Very unselfish, high IQ, like a coach's kid's supposed to be.
Yeah. And then there's other players on that team too. And maybe you can kind of shed some light on some of those guys. you got some
Briar
guys.
Camines is a great kid for us.
Yeah.
He's a kid that, brings it every day. He's just getting football out of him. But he's one of our better leaders on the court and in the locker room and, just anywhere. He's a kid that likes to, good IQ, great heart, knows what to say and who to say it to and when to say it. I mean, he can get in your tail a little bit, and he's right, so you don't say much back to him. Then, yeah, you're right.
So, there's a guy, he's a senior.
Yeah.
There have been years where, a guy like Briar Camines has started for you in years past.
How about a guy like Devin Dunn?
Yeah.
Who made a tremendous shot up there in Chicago last year. He's still not recouped enough from his spine surgery. He had scoliosis surgery. Grew a couple inches out of it, I think. But he's not going to be cleared to play until December, probably a couple weeks into that. But it's nice to have some depth. I mean, he's a tremendous hand. If you remember right, last year, he'd come in, he can guard anybody, he can shoot it from anywhere, and they can't take it from him. So no turnovers.
Last year you had him in at the critical part of a game, like you said, up in Hyde Park.
Right.
Made a great steal because that guy was open.
It was going to be game, set, match. That guy was scoring for the winner.
And he stole the ball and went down and hit about a 25-footer and nothing but net, just like you drew it up.
We guessed it at 35 feet. Because we saw we went back to the film and went, that was a heck of a shot.
It was a heck of a shot.
Just the way we drew it up.
Yeah, it was a great shot, a big win for you.
Because Swanson hadn't scored all night and came down and did a 360 double cadet, full pirouette type shot. And that was his first bucket.
Yeah, and that was a big win, I thought, for you guys. I believe it was the first game after the State Farm tournament.
Yeah.
And you needed a win.
We needed that.
And that got you a big win against a quality opponent in a
hostile environment.
I don't want to.
That was fun.
It was a great night.
Yep.
It was a great night. Those people at Hyde Park were tremendously nice.
Sure.
And
it was a great trip.
Yes, it was. And boy, I think that really kick-started you.
They had the music going. They had the DJ. I mean, they had the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Fun day.
It was. It was a really fun day. And
that was kind of a Larry Butler-sponsored event. And that's the guy where we go up every year in September and play in his preseason tournament. And but it was well worth the trip.
Yeah, it was. They were very nice to us when we went up to film the game. That was a great experience, and we'll talk a little bit about your season now. In your when I look at your schedule this year, wow, Coach, you didn't shy away from anybody, did you?
We need, last year was just like it, but I think maybe I went overboard this year. I don't know, but I think if you're going to be the best, you got to play the best, and you better be doing it before the end of the season. Because you better be seasoned enough to handle what's coming at you. And I think right out of the gate, we had the chance to either choose the state tournament or the national tournament over at the TOC at Washington. And we went with the national tournament. Wow. And that's what we've got. We've got, supposedly the team that's picked to win the 6A in Florida on our second game. Our third game is Booker T. Washington out of Houston. They're picked to win the 7A state championship in Texas. And so fourth game, who knows? But then we play Lincoln Park the next game after that, which is also in the TOC tournament. Then we go straight back to Washington, play Washington there. So just to even start right out of the gate is pretty good competition.
Yeah, you might be a better team this year and not have as good a record.
True.
And that's not a knock on anybody.
Right.
That's just the quality of schedule that you've put together. And, the Middle Illini, there's going to be some teams in the Middle Illini that are going to be tough. Washington's always good. Morton's going to be
quite a bit coming back.
They're going to be
Pekin to be highly motivated.
Rugard from Morton's a pretty solid player.
Yeah.
I believe they've got, is it Tate Raleigh that's back also?
Right.
So they're going to have some players. Like you said, Pekin's always scrappy. It's always the worst place in the conference to go play a game just because their gym it's difficult to play in, and they do a tremendous job of defending their home court.
Limestone, new coach, new players.
Yeah.
There's quite a few kids that moved in, from what I understand.
And I think the sleeper in the conference is going to be East Peoria, to me.
Well, they got the Page kid from Manual that came over there, and another couple kids that one of them moved and had to come back, which will be eligible. So, we beat them as bad as we could one time last year by 1 point.
1 point at our place.
At our place. So they're going to be very competitive. John does a great job. He's one of the most difficult coaches to prepare for around here, and they'll give us all we want again.
And some of these other schools, Canton, you never can lay down on Canton,
Right?
Because every year they knock somebody off, and you just hope it's not you.
But we haven't been able to play a couple teams in a while. Central has dropped us. Notre Dame has dropped us. Now we're playing Central over at the Manual Shootout, and we're playing Notre Dame over at the Normal West Shootout. And so it'll be good to get a chance to get back at those two a little bit and see where we stand with those two.
Yeah.
Because here again, those are schools that we could possibly see postseason. So I'd like to get at least one game in the season for that. Good prep.
Wow. Have you scheduled anybody on there where you say, this is going to be a game where I can go deep into my bench, and hopefully, this is a game we can kind of ease up a little bit?
No. Because we're going to the tournament in Mississippi again.
Yep.
We went there 7 years ago with Nate and Dallas Morgan and Jordan Dame and those guys. Tremendous tournament. I've been watching some of the teams, probably some of the most athletic kids we'll see all year, and so that'll be fun.
Wow. And then one game that we haven't talked about is a return match with Springfield Sacred Heart Griffin. I believe it's in January.
Yes, it's like January 17th. It's Martin Luther King Day on that Monday at 5 o'clock down at the UIS in Springfield. It should be a sellout. It'll be a banger game, I guarantee.
Yeah, it'll be a whale of a ball game, and that'll be one that you're going to have it circled on your calendar. You've played them a few times. I think, did you play them twice this past summer?
We did.
And what'd you do?
We split.
You split with them. So you couldn't find two more evenly matched teams. So that'll be interesting. When you look across the state, though, in 3A, where do you think we rank?
Well, I saw somebody was tweeting the other day. Some of the teams that we played last year are pretty good. East St. Louis is loaded. They got everybody coming back. Yeah. Plus, they got two move-ins. One of them's from Vajon that's 6'8", and they've already got all their bigs back. They got another guard. It's about 6'6". It's a high D1 kid that moved in. So, East St. Louis is going to be loaded. As I look, Springfield Sacred Heart Griffin is going to have to probably play them on that side as we come up, if we in fact would make it that far again in the state tournament. And guess who we would have to run into again? Chicago team.
Yeah, Chicago team. Possibly Simeon.
Simeon is loaded.
Did the two Rubin brothers transfer back to Homewood Flossmoor?
No.
Okay.
So, but they did have two new kids move in, and I tell you, they're going to be loaded. They're odds-on end to their pick to win it all. And the great thing is they're still talking about our game, how they let it slip away. I would like to think more about we stole it and just played our tail off, and they never saw it coming.
Right.
That's how I tell the tale, but I think that was the game. So we won't sneak up on them this year, I guarantee you. But we hope we get a chance to play them.
And that would be an awfully exciting ball game. You'll be tested if that comes to fruition.
Yeah.
You'll be tested. There's no easy games. There's no easy stretch. And your kids are going to have to be on their ball game every night you take the floor.
Well, and I think they will be. We challenge them every day in practice. Practice is hard and games are easy. They're ready for a game. They're tired of us. But I do believe that, if you challenge people, they'll be up to the challenge. So if you put a bunch of cream puffs on there, they'll never reach the potential.
Right.
You don't get out of that comfort zone enough, then you're not going to be prepared for when you really take that. Everybody's got a plan until you get hit in the jaw. Well, we got some teams that could really hit us.
Yeah.
And, we got to be prepared to be able to take that.
Yeah.
And not just take it, but be able to give it out. And I think that's what we did at the end of the season last year.
Oh, most definitely.
People go, well, how are you going to beat this team or this team? I put it right back on. Well, how that team going to beat us? And that kind of mentality, I think, carried over to our kids. And they expected to win every game. They were surprised when we lost the state championship game. In the beginning of the season, they could not even fathom ever being in a state championship game. So, there was a lot of growth through the year.
Yeah, it's going to be one whale of a ride, that's for sure. You start this coming Tuesday night over in Washington, the Tournament of Champions against Yorkville Christian, and you mentioned them briefly a little bit earlier. They lose their star player, Jaden Shute, who's now at Duke.
Right.
But I believe they've got another kid that's pretty solid.
Douglas, number 14. As a matter of fact, in the Super Sectional last year, he had 16 of the first 33. So I mean, the kid's a legit player.
Yeah, they're pretty solid. And they've come a long way from when they used to come down to our Redbird Round Ball Classic.
If you remember right, the first year in existence we played them. Then the following year we went up there.
Right.
But we couldn't do that first year because they didn't have a gym to play in, and they were borrowing a gym and they couldn't get it. So, yeah, they've come a long ways. Aaron does a good job there. He's got a school of about 67 to 70 kids, and most of them play basketball. So I mean, what a coach's dream.
Yeah. Well, Coach, looking forward to the season, and good luck, and we'll see you Tuesday night.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Happy holidays, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Join us next week for another edition of The Danny Grieves Show.